Sunday. Kind of snuck up on us there, but welcome to another episode of True Story Live. We're just in the studio, just kind of chatting and laughing, and didn't realize that the time was upon us. So welcome tonight's. Oh, I hear my voice. Let me see.
Oh,
That's
what's going
me. That's me. No, sorry.
It's me. It's
I
me.
had the when I posted the show, I still had that YouTube open, and so I could hear
Ah,
myself. My apologies. That was totally on me. I
how
fixed
dare
it.
you?
Okay, tonight's topic: the allure of creativity, glory, and valor for the hope in future. For the hope in future. So we'll get to that in just a minute. But before we do that, we'll say hello to all of our panel. And we'll start with our newest panel member, Marisa, who we're happy to have with us. I think, what is this, the fourth broadcast that we've had you here?
I thought it was more than that, but who can
Maybe
say
it is.
time flies when you're having fun?
Maybe it is. And we're
You
glad.
lose
Hello,
count.
everybody. Happy Mother's Day. And I hope you take the time to either think about the lady who served that purpose in your life, especially if that was a pleasant experience. I know not everybody has good
Yeah.
mothers or even knows who their mother is, etc. But all
Right.
that aside, if you especially had pleasant experiences with your maternal figure, I hope you think fondly on her today. I know I was missing my mother and my grandmother who served as my maternal figure. I
Right.
miss them every single day. Good to
Yeah.
see you guys. I love you. Let's have a great show. Woo!
Thank you. Thank you. Exuberant. What an exuberant greeting. I love it.
Yes.
So, one thing that's true, we may not all be mothers, but we all have a mother.
That is true.
Yeah. Jen, you're up next. Say hello to the peoples for me.
Hello, peoples. Happy Mother's Day, guys. Hope you're enjoying your mom or memories of your mom and other maternal figures. And it's good to be here. I'm excited about the show tonight.
Thank you, Jen. You also sound exuberant. Thank you for that
Yes.
that greeting. Glenn, say hello to the peoples, please.
Yeah, hi. I don't think I ever did Mother's Day with my mum. I used to say to her every day is Mother's Day, so we didn't really make it a one day. So
Yeah.
different approach as
So
usual
every day.
by the
Yeah.
Aussies.
Yeah, we love that it's a different approach. I think that brings spice to the channel and to the broadcast. So that's great. Okay, and hello to everyone. For those of you listening for the first time, which would surprise me, my name is Jason, and I'm the main host of the show. But we work as a panel; everybody contributes, and that's the write up this week was written by Glenn. We appreciate his offering. And we're glad to be here, and we'll get in that topic in just a moment. Before we do, does anyone want to share your favorite memory of your mother in celebration of Mother's Day? Does anyone want to do that? If you have one, I'll go first. So I didn't know that my mom's going to die, and so the time that I remember most fondly, and there's a lot of them, but the time I remember most fondly was the last time that we really spent a lot of time together. It was for my birthday. This was probably in May of 2016, and she would pass March 4th. My sister thinks it was the 3rd. I think it was on. It doesn't matter. She died in March of 2017. And for my birthday, it was a little bit late, but she had bought tickets to see the Screw Tape Letters, which was a C.S. Lewis. For those of you that don't know, C.S. Lewis. It was a traveling production at the big, beautiful Bloomingthal Theater. The same one that Jen and I went to go see Hamilton here recently last Sunday, and it was just a really good time. I drove and we found a parking spot and we walked to the theater and we spent I don't know, good 3.5 hours together and drove home. And it was a really nice birthday gift from her. And we spent time together after that, but that was really the thing that I remember most. And, obviously because she died, it's something that really sticks in my mind. And we had great conversations, as we always did. And it was a great production as well. So I will always have fond memories of that time with her. And every Mother's Day, I think of her. I do the same on her birth date and also the anniversary of her death. All those things, I probably think of her the most. And also just randomly, we talk a lot about her on the show. And she's just a person that has had a lot of impact in my life, obviously as my mother, but also an impact on so many other people in their lives as well. So I remember her fondly today and every day. Does anyone else want to share?
Me.
Okay, go ahead, Jen.
My mom and I have a ton of really funny stories, but this one, we loved taking road trips together to like visit family and stuff. And one time we were driving down to Golds Road to see my brother. He was stationed at Seymour Johnson Air Force Base in North Carolina. And as we were driving, we're on the highway, we're coming around a bend. And I just have loved the moon since I was little, the stars and the moon. And we're coming around the bend and I was like, oh, Mom, look at the moon. And she was like, oh my gosh, wow. And we're driving and we get closer and we go around the curve to really see it. And it ended up being this white water tower that was lit from underneath. And we were dying laughing. So anytime we're on the road now, like we'll see a water tower, like, look, it's the moon. We have like just so many different memories of stuff happening like that. We just have a blast together. So
that's great.
Yeah, that's just one of many stories. It's a short one.
Yeah. Okay. No, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. So now when we travel and I see a water tower, I'll say, look, there's the moon. I wasn't there, but still, you told me the story. So.
If you do it around my mom, she'll crack up.
Oh, I hope that happens. I'm going to have to do that someday.
Oh, yes.
Thank you, Jen. Marisa or Glenn, do you want to share a favorite memory with your mother?
I will.
Okay, Glenn.
Go ahead, Glenn. I'll wait for you.
Okay, sure. Probably two things. The first thing is only on reflection, I realised how much my mum sacrificed and did for us kids. Hindsight's marvellous. When you're growing up, you never actually see what your parents do.
Right.
And when you get older, it suddenly hits you like a bomb. Oh my goodness. What they did all that for me? Like, what?
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's a bit of a wake up call.
Sure.
For sure. And the other thing is, my mum used to love to go to the horse races, or races as we call them. So we spent many times at the races with my mum and my dad, and that's very fond memories for me. So.
Nice.
Oh, sure.
And she passed away when I was in the States, when I didn't even know.
Oh, wow.
Oh, no.
With you guys, just after I left you guys, she was obviously gone. So I didn't find out until I got home.
Oh, no. Yeah, I'm sorry to hear that. I mean, I remember it, but I'm sorry that.
It is what it is. I didn't really feel the grief that some people felt. I just thought, my goodness, everything that needed to be said and done was already done in life.
Yeah.
You had a good run. You had a great run, a wonderful life. You can't ask for much more.
Right.
So,
yeah. Something that you said there, if we take the time with all the people that are important to us to let them know how important they are to us, then I feel like you have less regret when they pass on. I have the same thing with my mom the last 8 years or so. And for those of you that have listened to the broadcast for a long time have heard me say this, that the last 8 years were the best for us in our relationship. My mom had done a lot of work on herself to to change, and she was a therapist and helping other people, but she did a lot of work on herself, and I worked with her. We saw a counselor together to work on our relationship, and we would actually follow the steps that were suggested. And in fact, this play was part of the suggestion, because the idea was that when we were together, we talked about psychology, and we talked about relationships and life, and all these heady topics. And the therapist, one of the meetings we went to, said, "Do you guys ever do anything just fun together?" And we looked at each other and said, "Well, we play tennis from time to time." And she suggested we do more of that. So going to see the play was my mom's attempt to do something that, wasn't as necessarily deep, and just something fun, an excursion where we could spend some quality time, and not just deep in philosophical conversation, because that was something that we did a lot. So anyway, that's good. Thank you, Glenn, for sharing that. And Marisa saved the best for last.
Oh boy, here we go. My mother's name was Krista. She was a registered nurse. She had a beautiful singing voice, as if she was a trained opera singer. She wasn't, but she was fantastic. She was very much into natural and homeopathic remedies, curatives, preventatives. She would have loved what I'm doing on YouTube. She was always very supportive of all of my creative endeavors. I've never met anybody who was as supportive of that in my life as my mother. I mean, I've had supportive people, but nobody could come close to her. Let me tell you a quick little story. She, as a registered nurse, she had, had to work on her. Well, not work on it, she just had it natural. But she had a nice bedside manner. And when you hear me talk like this, especially when I'm in my live streams, and I'm like, "Hello, everybody," and I'm talking like my mother when I'm like that.
Okay.
Because you got to be nice to people, and you got to calm them down. Some people are a little anxious, a little anxiety. They just come talking down. Well, there was this one gentleman who did not want to take his enema. And she thought, how am I going to do this? Well, she got the idea. If you throw the word enema in, the story's going to end up really good. Okay.
Yeah. All of our ears perked up. We're like, "Oh, what?"
I promise. It's worth it. Well, he was a bit effeminate, and he liked, flowers and girly things, and he was, wasn't ashamed of that. That was just his thing. And she's like, "How am I going to get this guy to take his enema?" And she's like, "Oh, I got it." Well, what she did was she went in and she said, "Sir, there's a special thing the hospital's doing right now. And if you comply with your treatments, you get a free set of rose pattern dishes." And he just went, "Oh, well, all right then." And he just complied from that moment on.
Wow.
Every time I see rose pattern dishes somewhere, I think of that story.
Well, kudos to your mother.
My mother, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, I'll be quiet.
No. Kudos to your mother for finding a motivational gift to offer.
Yes, she did. She was very motivated.
Oh my goodness.
Wonderful.
He was a little bit upset later that I asked her. I was just a kid when she told me this. I said, "So what happened when he found out that he didn't get any dishes?" He was mad, but he got over it. He was upset. He really wanted those dishes.
Okay. Well,
poor guy. But good on your mom.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you, everyone, for sharing your just at least one Mother's Day story or memory of your mother. So we hope everyone in the audience, we hope that your day, however you celebrate it with your mother, your grandmother, your sister, whatever, hope you're celebrating the mothers in your life. So thank you for being with us tonight. And Jen, if you would say hello to anyone in the chat, and then we'll get started.
Sure. I'll go from the bottom up top. We've got Celine in here. Hey, Celine. Glenn, Janet's here. Not feeling super great, so she's going to just listen.
Sure.
No typing, so you rest up, Janet. We've got Lon from Fisherman in a Box. Hello, Lon. And John Mons is here as well.
Yeah. Well, thank you guys for showing up. And I saw Lon said, "I Amber heard another Cripster." That's great. So, for those of you who have been, I don't know, I want to say living under a rock, but that's probably not the
That's
best
not
way
very
to.
nice.
It's not very nice. No. Anyone? Well, you know, it may be a positive thing if you're avoiding all social media and news and all of that and magazines and you don't know about the trial going on right now. They're on a break for a week, but it's the defamation trial. Johnny Depp is suing Amber Heard for defamation. And I don't normally get into those sorts of things, but the psychology of it is fascinating to me. You know, seeing a narcissist claiming that another probably narcissist abused them. And these are all distinctions I'm making. But between the two of them, I am rooting for Mr. Depp. I'm on Team Depp for this one. I don't believe a word Amber Heard says. So that's funny that he chose that particular phrase. And I would love to hear what Lon thinks about it. I mean, it's all just world stuff to begin with. And I also feel in some way it's a distraction from something else going on. Anytime there's a big story like this that all the news outlets cover, I always look to see what I feel like they're trying to distract us from. So I don't know. Anyway, there it is. All right. So we'll say hello to anyone that pops into the chat in a little bit, and we're going to get started. Now, again, Glenn did the write-up for tonight, and the topic is the allure of creativity, glory, and valor for the hope in future. As usual, it starts with a quote. Every single second is an opportunity to change your life because at any moment you can change the way you feel. Rhonda Byrne. This TSL is derived from a listener's request. Thanks for your input. Most enlightening. Tonight's broadcast can be summarized as a focus on self-perception. It's about our creativity, talent, attraction, gratitude, and more. I have another great piece of music for this evening. Well, at least great for the writer. Glory and Valor by Joseph William Morgan. The link is in the description. Please give that a listen when you have the moment. The Cambridge Dictionary defines creativity as, quote, the ability to produce original and unusual ideas or to make something new or imaginative, end quote. What comes to mind is that creativity is related to positive adaptation and problem solving to enable one to survive in the world. Sure, there are great artists, musicians, thinkers, etc., with incredible talents. Personally, I marvel at the creative force that must exist within these people. So, what does the word creativity mean to you? Do you consider yourself creative? If so, in what context? Do you see any value in comparing your creative talents with others? What do you say to the person who says to themselves, quote, I am creative. I can't find my niche. I have tried everything and nothing seems to fit, end quote. And to that, another quote, how can someone be attracted to me when I can't even find my talents if I have any, end quote. Now, some selected extracts from email conversations with the listener to illustrate what is being discussed. All right, so Glenn starts out. This is his part. Why do you have to find yourself before you work at life? I see it the other way around. I think you work at your life. Life itself will present you with options. One can spend all their time looking for something to do and end up doing nothing. The listener responds, because what you just stated is exactly what I did. Life will lead you into a hole on earth. I learned that the hard way. The more you're exposed in youth to the reality of the world as taught by parents and peers, plus the observation of others leads you to the hole. You can make decisions based on what you know exists. Maybe I just got the short end of the stick, but then again, maybe I passed up opportunities presented and I was blinded by my own foolishness. But the question now is where and what now? The listener continues, what do you mean go with the flow? What was the flow? I mean, I went with the flow for years and everyone else went to college. Then I went with the flow of life from job to job. Finally, I said, forget this. Did too much for others. Didn't care about my own well-being. Absolute foolishness for me. Now it's just here, now I'm just here, lost in translation. That's why I started to compare myself with others. I saw that they had a desire since they were a kid, or they have a talent, and either they use it or they have done something else. Some are miserable, some are content. But I thought, WTF? If I knew I had a talent like acting, writing, sports, preaching, teaching, leading, engineering, singing, to me, life is easy to figure out. I would work hard at perfecting that talent. Me, I feel like a shop rat, now physically broken to even do that. The ray of hope, if there is one, is if I can love people and have empathy to not want others to hurt themselves or others, I'm sure there are others that may think the same way about me. Glenn responds, well, for a start, going with the flow means first give up any anger or discontent that one has for the world. The flow means take away focus from outcome and allow oneself to experience the moment. You might say, does that mean I should not have goals I want to achieve? Nope, it does not mean that. It means don't get so focused on the goals that you don't even rejoice that you have legs to walk to that goal as an example. I hear you saying you are not achieving, but first it needs to be rammed down. That achievement does not require the prerequisite of putting a load of pressure on oneself. Here's a question for you. Which comes first, learning to live in the world and using your generous heart to try to make things better for others, or focusing on what you achieve or don't achieve? The philosophical question in all of this is, does life create you or do you create life? Taking all that has been said, I must wonder if one person is more creative than another. It's just how we perceive the meaning of the word. There is always another angle to consider. Try this one for size. Quote, gratitude is the best medicine. It heals your mind, your body, and your spirit, and attracts more things to be grateful for. And that's by Unknown. And then a final question. Is the allure of one's creativity is it the allure of one's creativity that is the attraction, or is it the gratitude and humility that we express for having our unique personal creativity, which is the true attraction? Okay. Wow, lots of stuff. Love it. Creativity. All right, and we'll get started with the questions here in just a second. But before we do, I wanted to go over this quote again at the beginning. Jen and I were talking before the broadcast, and I want to kind of make a question out of this quote and ask everyone what they think. So the quote says, every single second is an opportunity to change your life, because at any moment you can change the way you feel. Rhonda Byrne. And I wonder when Glenn added this, if he knew that I would ask a question about this or bring this into the conversation. It's not highlighted as a question, it's a quote. But I wonder. The first part, I'll go first. The first part I agree with. Every single second is an opportunity to change your life. I agree with that. Every moment that we're alive, when we can still breathe and blood's pumping through our veins, we have all kinds of opportunity. There may be some things that are closed off from us. There may be some things that we'll never get to do. Like I'll never play professional basketball. I don't have the size, and certainly at my age, I don't have the durability and I can't think of the word. What does it mean when you can play on and on? I can't think of the word. It's so ridiculous.
Endurance.
Endurance. Yes, thank you. Endurance to do that. I did play basketball when I was a youngster, but we were all short. This is before high school. So that wasn't a challenge. My point is there may be things that you'll never do because either you don't have the mental capacity or physical limitations and things like that. But every moment, I agree with that part of the quote, is an opportunity for all sorts of things. So the part that I want to discuss is the second part, which is because at any moment you can change the way you feel. So the implication of the second part of that is that we have the power to change the way we feel. Does anyone want to comment on it? Do you agree with that part of the quote? Do you feel like we can change how we feel?
I think if she added about yourself at the end, it would have been much more relevant.
Oh, okay. So you feel like we can change how we feel about ourselves?
Absolutely.
Okay.
So it's not necessarily change how you feel in general. It's just how we feel about ourselves.
Your attitude towards yourself could make a huge difference to how you see the world.
That's
true. I agree. So maybe I'm thinking about it in the wrong way. I'm thinking in the moment. When I read the quote, I was thinking about times when I was upset and someone said, calm down. And that didn't help me calm down at all. How we feel in the moment is how we feel. We can decide, hey, I'm going to choose not to discontinue yelling, or I'm going to choose to tamp down how I'm feeling, but we don't always necessarily have the power to change how we're feeling internally. Like we've discussed, do we decide who we love? And I've made the assertion that, you have feelings for who you have feelings with. You can't always just say, well, I have feelings for this person, but I shouldn't. So I'm going to not have feelings anymore. I do agree that we can do things to change the way we feel over time. We can notice that we have a feeling we don't like about ourselves, and we can take steps to change that, to change things about ourselves that we don't like, and that in essence will change the way we feel about that particular part of us. Anyone else want to comment on that? What do you think, Jen or Marisa? No?
Well, Crips, I'll add one more thing. I mean, someone can come to you and say, I hate you.
Right.
You're a horrible person. Well, you can feel totally swept out that someone just sees you in that horrible perspective, where you can say, well, that's not me.
Right.
I don't feel that.
Right.
There goes my phone, as usual. It always rings.
Most phones have this special feature that works really well, which is, put it on vibrate or silent or airplane mode. All those things work.
Are you being passive aggressive?
A little bit. A little bit.
I like when our show has a little bit of music. I request the monkeys next.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. So while we have this little break, I want to say hello to Kellyanne Dean, who popped in the chat. Welcome, Kellyanne Dean. We're glad that you're here. Hope you had a good, I have no idea if you're a mother, but we all have a mother. So hope you had a great day celebrating that. And glad that you're here. We lost Marisa. I'm sure she'll be back.
That's her being passive aggressive about Glenn's phone.
Yeah, maybe
I'm out of here.
She didn't like my passive aggressiveness. And,
I was saying she didn't like the music.
Yeah.
Maybe it's either or, though.
Maybe it's both.
I know Celine wants us to read her comment above, but I want to get a little more into the write-up before we read comments, if that's okay. Just get a little more foundation in what's going on. But I see you, Celine.
Yeah.
I see you.
Yeah. Okay. All right. So we'll get to the questions. And we read the definition, the definition of creativity, the ability to produce original and unusual ideas or to make something new or imaginative. I love that definition. That's great. What comes to mind is that creativity is related to positive adaptation and problem solving to enable one to survive in the world. Sure, there are great artists, musicians, thinkers, etc., with incredible talents. Personally, I marvel at the creative force that must exist within these people. So the first question, oh, there she is. Hold on one second, guys. There she
Sorry
is.
about that. It froze up. I had to leave and come back.
I
Sorry.
got you. Thank you for coming back. Okay, so I just read the bits before the first question. So the first question is, so what does the word creativity mean to you? What does the word creativity mean to you? According to the dictionary, it is the ability to produce original and unusual ideas or to make something new or imaginative. Does anyone have a burning desire to share their answer to the first question?
I'll go first.
Oh, go ahead. Yeah.
Oh, no, go ahead. Go ahead.
I was just going to say, I agree with the definition. And for me personally, I don't know if this is everybody, but I definitely think about anything within the arts, just drawing, painting, singing, music, any of that stuff. That's usually where my brain goes to at first. All right, Marisa, you're up.
God gives us many gifts. And if you have the gift of creativity, and I see that as a gift, that is one of his own things that he does. I think anybody who has the creative gift should be extra appreciative that God thought to give you something that he himself uses and possesses all the time.
Point. Yeah.
It's an honor to have the gift of creativity from where I'm sitting.
Yeah.
Yes. Agree.
So I'm very blessed and very happy to have that gift. So
yeah, great. Thank you, Marisa. What about you, Glenn? So what does the word creativity mean to you?
I think it's very, very open-ended.
Yeah.
On one end of the scale, it can be those incredibly talented people that Nez Marisa mentioned. And then I said to Sandra, well, actually, look at yourself. You're creative every day. You live with chronic pain. You have to be creative to find ways that you're going to survive.
Yes.
Great point.
So anything in between. So she said, well, look, the truth of it is, I think every person is being creative all the time, only they don't perceive it as being creative.
Wow. Well,
because problem solving can be a creative, facet of creativity.
Yeah. That's fascinating that she said that, because that was going to be my answer, and I had and I'll still make the point, but I use my dad for example. You guys have heard me talk about him, and most times it's in a negative light. Now, he is a singer, so he's part of a gospel group, and I think most people would agree that he has a decent singing voice, and he's been doing that for a long time. So there's definitely some creativity in that. He also, when in his younger days, did some art stuff, and I consider him to be fairly talented in that area. But where I see him as being the most creative is in the work that he does with his hands. He's a trim carpenter, and very creative in that way of problem solving, finding ways to overcome a problem using wood, or like trim work, or stairs. We encounter problems in the field in trimming houses all the time, where the architect didn't do something right, and we have to, like, where you install two doors that are close to each other, and the doors each have their own trim on the outside of the door. But there's no room for the trim to go against the wall because the doors are too close. They're designed too close together. So you have to figure out how to trim to cut each door so that they both fit into the hole. And one door has to overlap the other with the trim and not have there be a big gaping hole there. And it's interesting that I have had to learn how to do that. I've run into that a number of times. My dad always said, and I agree with him, it's a separate point, but architects should be forced to do trim work or be involved in the construction of a home before they're ever allowed to draw up plans. And I agree with that completely, because sometimes the things they draw on paper, they don't take in consideration the amount of room that there is to do certain things that they creatively make up in their heads. And it would be a lot better if they actually saw how these creative things that they draw on paper look in the field. And that would make them a better architect, in my opinion. Also, he's creative with mechanical things. He has a real mechanical mind. I do not possess this to that extent. There are some things mechanically that I can figure out how something works and fix it. But I just, in fixing toys for us as kids and figuring out how to patch something up, working on a car, and things like that. He was always able to figure out a way to do that, and I used to marvel at that. So using those as examples of, not necessarily other than the singing and the art work, finding other ways that you think that someone else or yourself are creative in that way, like Sandra was saying. I have certain levels of creativity in writing and acting and things like that. But I enjoy drawing, and I don't feel like I'm a great artist or anything, but I really enjoy it. And I used to enjoy it as a kid. I used to draw all the time, but I just got frustrated with it because I couldn't make it look like what I saw as, good artistic work. But I do little designs and stuff when I write Jen a letter, and she's I think she's saying it because she's just really supportive of me, but she says that I am an artist. So that's interesting. But I see myself as creative with discerning people's motives and being able to involve myself in the mental health of people and reading them and thinking about what their intents are by their behavior and things like that. That's how I see myself. To me, it is a creativity. I will agree with Marisa that, believing in God, I believe that he gives us certain levels of creativity in different areas, and it all may not be the same. I mean, there can be two artists, but they're very different in the way they come about their drawings. You can have two people draw the same thing. Like if you say, here, draw this bowl of fruit. And each of the artists, in my opinion, is going to be a little bit different based on their own talent, how they learned how to draw, how they draw certain things. It's just going to be a little bit different. I just think that I agree that all of us have different talents and abilities, and we use our creativity in different ways. So that was my long drawn out answer to that. Okay. Did everyone answer that first question? I think we did. Okay. Anyone want to comment on anything that someone else said to the answer to this question? Okay. Next question. Do you consider yourself creative? If so, in what context? Well, I just kind of answered that from my perspective. So we'll go with Jen. Jen, do you consider yourself creative? If so, in what context?
Gosh, creative in the way I love people. That's one.
Yeah.
But my trusty one is just art.
Yeah.
I feel like I used to tell people that I was a schizophrenic artist because I'm like calligraphy and watercolor and music, and singing and dancing and all kinds of stuff. And I just have never really been able to pick one.
Right.
But then I thought, you know what? I don't need to just kind of dabble in anything that makes my heart flutter.
Yeah.
It has something to do with creativity.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's me in a nutshell.
Well, not that you need me to agree with you, but in observing you, I would agree that you have many different areas which are creative. You didn't mention photography, but that's one of the first things I noticed about you was all your photographs that you've taken on Facebook. And even though I'm not a photographer or an artist, I always seem to be able to, at least in my own mind, recognize good art when I see it. And your you have a very particular eye for photography. And I don't think I'm the only one that thinks that. So just to back up what you said, Jen, you have a lot
Thanks,
of
Pete.
different. I would say that your cooking is a creative art as well. And
Yes.
I'm a little biased, but I have tasted a lot of different dishes and desserts and things like that, and I know I can't do that. And people, when you say that and you praise someone's cooking, they say, "Oh, it's just putting a certain amount of butter and salt and all of that." But I have tried to do that, and it doesn't always seem to taste as good as someone else. But I also think that anyone else's cooking tastes better than when you have to cook it yourself. That's just my opinion.
I have a funny story about being creative with cooking. My dad is one of these guys that when he cooks a meal, he's always like throwing in this and throwing in a dash of that. And it always comes out amazing. And I grew up watching him do this. And there was one time I was making these for me and my brother, and I wasn't old enough to know that baking is very different than cooking. And so when you've got recipes for baking, it's like a science. They do tests and
Right.
figure out exactly how much baking soda and exactly how much sugar and butter and all that stuff. So I just had such a sweet tooth when I was little, and I was like, I'm just going to add some more sugar into this cookie dough. And it was too much. I did not follow the recipe. And it ended up coming out like candy, these cookies, because there was too much sugar. My mom had to sit me down and explain, okay, when you're baking, it's different than cooking, what your dad does. It's all measured out. It's all figured out, and you've got to do it to a T. And I was like, oh, because I was like, what did I do to these cookies? They're delicious. They're just hard, like maple candy.
Yeah.
Or peanut brittle, it was like, ooh, hard on the teeth, but delicious. That was funny.
Great.
Just wanted to say that was hilarious.
I love it. Thank you, Jen. Marisa, if you would like to take this one, do you consider yourself creative? If so, in what context?
I am most certainly creative. I've been blessed in many ways, not just artistically with fine art. I also am musically inclined to be creative. I sing. I play keyboard and piano. Not very well, mind you. I do. I can play a little bit here and there. And you were right about cooking. Cooking is also I say on my channel, have fun with your art, and there's many ways you can do that. And you can do that taking care of animals, taking care of plants. You can do that with interior design. You can do that with writing, with making videos. The list goes on and on and on.
Sure.
Whatever you're putting your creative energy into, becomes an art form.
Yeah.
If you follow through with it. And, but yeah, absolutely. I'm most certainly of the creative sort. I've had to, and that crosses over into other areas of my life too. I've had to be creative. When you're a parent, you have to be creative. I don't have a clean pair of socks. What am I going to do? And
problem solving.
I got to wipe this grape jelly off of this kid, and I have nothing. What am I going to do? Oh my God!
Right.
But you've got to think on your. I think creative people can think on their toes.
Yeah.
So I think that's part of being creative. You have to come up with something from nothing.
Yes.
Well, thank you. Now, you mentioned interior design, and I would agree with you when you said that. I just had all these flashes, and me being a trim carpenter, a lot of times we would come back after everything was in there, and we would be invited by the homeowner. It didn't happen every time, but a lot of times the homeowner would invite us to see the final result, and we would see how people decided to decorate the home. Of course, we've done a lot of remodeling, so we're in people's houses a lot, putting crown molding in certain places or trim, whatever. So I've had the benefit of getting to see how a lot of people choose to decorate their homes, and some of them, in my opinion, are very good, and others are not so good. But I do agree that interior design and any number of things can be creative. You mentioned not having socks, and I was thinking that I've seen people that are very creative with their wardrobes, and I don't mean that in a negative context. I mean, sometimes I do, but it's people throwing together outfits with different splashes of color and things like that. I'm just fascinated that people know how to do that. I mean, when I was growing up and my mom would pick my clothes out for me, I had no idea how she got to the conclusion that these colors match. Of course, I was a child of the 70s, so anyone that was around back then knew that that was not the decade to choose for colors that go well together necessarily. Just go back and look at the wide collars the men wore, and you can imagine, and really, really interesting designs on shirts and plaid and bell-bottom jeans and all of that. You'll get an idea of what I'm referring to.
Yeah.
Glenn, do you consider yourself creative? If so, in what context?
I hadn't even thought about this word creativity until the listener brought it up. So it's something I had to go and scratch my head about. So I would say, yeah, but not in an overt public way. I think being introverted, I'm more inclined to keep any creativity to myself. So I would relate creativity to motivation. If I'm motivated, I'll be creative.
Sure.
But I don't have natural creativity. Like some people can just sit down and do stuff that just blow your head off. How does an artist just take a blank canvas and create something? That is not me. It's just that's just way outside of anything that I could even consider. So it's more low key. I'd say, yeah, but I think I'm creative in my own way.
Writing. You're writing the write-ups is very creative, I think.
I would agree.
I agree. You're creative, Glenn.
I don't do the write-ups. I get given the ideas. All I have to do is put it into words.
Right.
That creativity.
Jen said in the chat, I think part of Glenn's creativity is helping people get down to the root of stuff. That's what Jen said in the chat.
If that means asking very tough questions and making them feel like crap at times, yeah, that's probably right.
Well,
it takes a little creativity.
It takes creativity, and it allows the person to think about things, and either they react negatively or they try to answer the questions. And if they get far enough in trying to answer the questions, a lot of times the result is them figuring something out about themselves. You're not telling them how to feel. You're asking questions that force them to think about it.
And you're right. People respond to that direct approach in very different ways, because if you're not ready to think about it, you're going to go into the defense wall.
Right. Which has happened.
You can't have walls.
Yeah.
So
no.
That's true. So low key creativity, yeah, but under the radar.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. And I'll just say, because I answered in the previous question, but the things that I mentioned, do I consider myself creative? Yes, I do. And I mentioned a few of the ways. I think that learning how to do trim carpeting, I'm not as don't consider myself as creative as my dad, but he did teach me. So I can do a lot of that stuff, and I think there's some creativity in that. And with writing and acting, you can be creative about choices as an actor, and I definitely have done that. One more question before we move on, because I was mentioning that I enjoy art, and I've thought this before. Whether you're creative or not is not for someone else to decide. Like I enjoy doing art, and so for the two of you that do art, do you think that if you enjoy doing something, is that creativity, even if it's not good by someone else's standards? That was what I was curious about. If you guys,
I think so. I totally think so.
Okay.
Because it's all in the eye of the beholder too. I think enjoyment is part of it. But I've seen some art that's really expensive in the museums that I'm like, what?
Yeah, like it's a blob of paint. How is that worth $100,000? I don't get it.
What do you think, Marisa? Ooh, she's still there.
I'm sorry. I was taking a drink. What now?
Oh, well, Jason asked a question. I was wondering what you thought.
What was the question again?
Do you think that creativity, there's an aspect of creativity that is your enjoyment of doing something, even if someone else doesn't think that your artwork, for instance, is good? If you enjoy doing it, is it creative?
Well, again, like I say, have fun with your art. And if you're having fun, that's the whole point. If you are, everybody has the right to express themselves in whatever medium they choose. And no one, art really even shouldn't be up to be called good or bad. It simply is.
Right.
That's a great point.
And it can be many different things to many different people. Somebody doesn't like it. Okay, well, that's wonderful. There's other people that do. And you really can't put a label on it and say, this is good or this is bad because one person says so. It's just something that is. It's a product that comes from you and your expression. I try to encourage other artists to go ahead and showcase their expression and their talent, and not take to heart whatever critical people have to say, because they are not the be all end all.
That's
just
good.
You have a right to express yourself, and that's the whole point, and to have fun doing it. That's what
I
it
love
is.
that.
Beautiful.
And I was going to read Celine's comment real quick. It's not the one she posted earlier. I'm going to bring up later when we talk about comparing. But I asked what people in the chat do that's creative, and she said, "I like to encourage believers with the videos I plan to make and have made in the past. I've also have grown a love for video making and stuff." So that's really cool, Celine. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah. Well, I thought I would read her. You can read her previous comments now, because the next question relates to at least the comparing part, and her comments are about comparing, even though it's not necessarily creativity.
Do you want to do the questions first, and then I'll read?
Yeah. So the question is, do you see any value in comparing your creative talents with others? That's the question. So it's about comparing. Do you think that applies? Jen? Can anyone else hear me? You're muted.
I hear you.
Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, there you are.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know why it dropped out. That was weird. Yeah, even though it's not about creativity, I don't mind reading it, if you don't mind.
I don't mind. No, go ahead and read this. These are Celine's comments. So Jen's going to read these two. So
she said, I found myself comparing myself to other Christian women who were already married. And I was looked down upon because I wasn't married at 20, but I wasn't ready to be married at 20 years old. And she said, I put in a lot of work mentally and emotionally to heal and to find myself feeling worthy of love from the opposite sex, because the church group I was in made me feel like I wasn't a godly woman. So thank you for sharing that, Celine. All right.
Yeah, just real briefly, we talked about this. I think it was last week or the week before. We talked about this. The church that you're involved with sounds like to me, based on comments you've made, that they're not real kind in the way that they judge you, in my opinion. I mean, I'm not there, so I can't always see every situation, but based on your comments, I think that's the case. Out of your comments, I believe that you're doing the right thing. You didn't ask for my opinion, but you put the comments in there. So don't rush yourself. My opinion would be, don't rush yourself to get married. It's a very important thing. And unless you want to go through divorce, you need to be really sure about who you are as a person and who you're choosing for a husband. And no one else's opinion should enter into that. So just keep doing what you're doing, and work on, like you said, work to heal emotionally. Know that you are worthy of love. And if you don't feel worthy of love, then obviously there's some scars there that you should be aware of, and work on those things. And eventually, I promise you, when you're ready, love will present itself. I think most of us would probably agree with that. So thank you for sharing your comments. We'll go to the question. Do you see any value in comparing your creative talents with others? And I'll go first this time. Do you see any value in comparing your creative talents with others? I think like the point I made about two artists drawing the same bowl of fruit, they're going to look a little bit different. But I think when you look at the way other people do things, I think you can get an idea of what works for you and what doesn't. I think there may be some value in that, not the creativity itself, but comparing how you do something. I think a lot of times take acting, for instance, there's a lot of good actors and there's a lot of bad actors. So if I look at what a good actor does and I employ some of those techniques in how I act in that way, I think there's value in that. But the danger, and as I see it, would be in thinking that you're going to be exactly the same as someone else in anything that you do.
Yeah.
Especially with art, the way that you hold a pencil or a brush or anything is going to be a little bit different. The way that you perceive things with your eye and put it on paper or on canvas or anything else is going to be just a little bit different because it's coming from you. It's a completely different perspective. So looking at some other artist or someone that does something in the field that you have interest in being creative, there is in my opinion, some value in it, but you have to be careful how far you take it, because if you're comparing your talent in something to someone else, then you're always using something that could be a skewed viewpoint if it's based on how good someone else is. I hope some of that makes sense.
Yeah.
What do you think, Jen? Do you see value in comparing your creative talents with others?
I think you said it beautifully. You kind of took the words out of my brain.
Oh.
I think, when you were talking about the good aspects of comparing, it made me think of like how they used to, and they still do apprenticeships now. But back in the day, like, I had all these books on sign painting and gold leafing and glass etching, the way they used to do signs and door windows back in like the early 1900s, late 1800s. You ended up doing apprenticeships. So you were training another creative artist in that particular field and medium. And that was a good thing, to an extent. But I think comparing can sometimes slip into paralyzing you because you're comparing yourself too much and trying to be somebody that you're not.
Right.
And trying to have your style. I mean, some people do copy other people. They're really good, maybe just as good.
Yeah.
But I think there's something to be said about being true to your own design or your own way of seeing things and how that comes out through your hands or whatever medium you're using, photography or music. So I think it can be very good, and I think it can slip into a bad place more easily for some people than others.
Wow. Yeah.
So.
Well, great point. Thank you, Jen. Appreciate that. Marisa, you're up on this one. Do you see any value in comparing your creative talents with others? What do you think?
If you're in a classroom environment, like you said, if your work is hanging in a gallery or a galleria or in a museum or at some kind of art expo, competition, whatever, certainly there's, an aspect of comparing your work with others that's appropriate. When you are in art school or taking art classes, you compare the styles of various artistic masters one to another. How you have to, art history is all about making comparisons and contrasts, pointing out contrast between different styles and different artists. But when you're just looking and talking about your own artwork, you can compare technique, but that also depends on, not everybody is going to do their artwork to be like, say, photorealism. So, you tell a classroom of 20 people, draw a walnut, and you're going to have 20 different pictures. Some people will do as realistic as possible. Some people naturally do abstract. Some people will naturally gravitate towards impressionism. I've seen it happen over and over and over. Not everybody's going to interpret things or express them in the same way. You
Right.
can't be
Yes.
so obsessed with what everybody else is doing or what's been done that you are creatively, what's the word I'm looking for? Creatively constipating yourself. For lack of a better way to put it, you get so stopped up with this is what was done here and this person did that. That can't stifle you with your own process and what you are producing. You can only take the comparison so far. Like I said, if you're in a class or you're in an art show or in a museum, that's appropriate. But you can't compare somebody's expression. It's just something. I mean, you can compare it, sure, but yeah, that's what art critics do. But I mean, everybody still has their right to say something. It just is.
Right.
So it really isn't always, you can't worry so much about what other people are doing or have done. You just have to be able to feel free enough and brave enough to express yourself, no matter what's been done. So I feel like I talked for 20 minutes. Oh my God, I'm so sorry.
No, not at all.
No.
Thank you. I
Yeah, you're
appreciate
good.
that. That was very good. You and Jen seem to agree on this particular point. I agree as well. Glenn, you're up next. Do you see any value in comparing your creative talents with others? What do you say?
Yeah, as I said before, creativity is a word that I'd never considered. So I'll try to talk more in general terms that make sense to me.
Okay, sure.
Okay, I'm fascinated by what you might call the way certain people can treat racehorses. Now, I know that I couldn't do that. So I could do some of it, but I couldn't do it all. So I would never compare myself with them. But what I would try to do is attach myself to them because I know that these people can teach me something. And I can be, if I turn up to watch these people and be humble about it, most people are very generous in what they will share with you. So I don't think it's more about comparing your creativity. I think it's more about being open to receive the gifts that others are prepared to give you. And that will, in essence, allow you to enhance your own creativity. So, does that make any sense?
Yeah, it does, actually. It does. Thank you, Glenn.
Knowledge, amazing. When you see people like that, you might look at the art gallery and say, that's awesome. When I see what these people do with the horses, I'm just like, your jaw drops. Yeah, I know no one on here probably would understand, but it's pretty amazing stuff. Like, yeah.
I understand a little bit. I'm a fan of well, obviously it's what Hollywood does with stories of great horses throughout history. And I realize that it's all, done with cameras and things like that. But stories of horse racing and things, have always found that fascinating. I remember it wasn't necessarily horse racing, but there was a movie called Black Beauty when I was a kid, and it was one of my favorite films. And other films that have been done have been very, very popular in showing all the nuances of racing and the things, you think, oh, just get on a horse and race other people on horses. It's way more than that. I think it's a beautiful sport, and I think horses are beautiful. That's all I have to say about that.
Yeah. What you see in the film is 1%.
Right. Okay. Yeah.
Of what happens.
Right.
They don't show you the truth, the reality of what goes behind all this. This is like Usain Bolt. These are performance athletes.
Yeah.
It's huge. Yeah.
Yeah.
Anyway, I won't go into it.
They probably simplify it in the movies.
Oh, I'm
when
sure
it's a lot more complex.
Yeah. I'm sure that's true.
I think so.
Yeah. Okay, next question. What do you say to a person who says to themselves, quote, I am not creative. I can't find my niche or niche, whatever way you choose to pronounce it. I have tried everything, and everything is underlined, and nothing seems to fit. I am not creative. I can't find my niche. I have tried everything, and nothing seems to fit.
Ooh, pick me.
I pick you, Jen.
I wonder if people that get into this position have more of a narrow kind of idea of creativity. It may be just narrow to like the
Ooh.
arts.
Ooh.
Like my mom, for example, she is not artistic, and she always jokes that she can't even draw a stick man. But she also was a registered nurse, like Nez's mom,
Yeah.
and she was just a wonderful nurse. She's very, very talented with all kinds of things within the nursing field, and she teaches Bible studies, and she's an amazing teacher. And she's, I think, the amazing part of her teaching is she is very genuine and authentic in how she shares her own stuff with her classes of women, and you know, what God's done in her life and stuff. So I think that's very creative in a sense. It's another facet of creativity. And just like we were talking earlier in the broadcast, like Glenn was saying, and I can't remember his exact words, but there's just so many facets of creativity that I think society doesn't see or look at as creativity when it is. You know, us living life each day, there's creative facets to that. And you know, being a good friend, there's a creative aspect to that. Being a good husband or wife or daughter or son or brother, sister, there's creativity in that. How you love people, you know, how you care about people, even being authentic with people and being open. I just think there's creative attached to everything that we do.
Yeah.
So that's my
I
answer.
agree. Thank you, Jen. That was wonderful. Thank you. Marisa, how about you? What do you say to a person that says, I've tried, or I am not creative, I can't find my niche, I've tried everything and nothing seems to fit? How do you help that person?
I would say, why are you saying you've tried everything when you couldn't possibly have tried everything?
Ooh.
But I would also say, not everybody is creative. If you really have worked that hard and looked high and low over years and years and years and years and come up with squat, then just maybe you don't have that particular gift, and that's okay. Not everybody has the gift of creativity. That's just one of those things. Not everybody is, and that's okay. But I would stress to that person, everybody's either good at something or takes enjoyment in something.
Yes.
You know, what is it? Is it food? Is it travel? Is it TV? Is it you know, something musical? Where do your interests lie? You know, deal with what you know. You know yourself best. What makes you happy? Are you, one of those people that's, maybe sex is your thing, just to throw it out there. Maybe that's, when people are creative in the bedroom. I mean, I'm just saying that's,
Sure.
I'll throw it out there. But there's got to be something. Usually you find your creative outlet where your pleasure lies, your joy, what makes you happy, brings you, a good, happy, positive feeling, or a confident feeling, or, something that you do well. What is it? Are you just a total lump with no redeeming qualities? Come on now. Either you haven't looked hard enough, or you need to study yourself a little more to, if you've always liked cooking for people, explore that some more. I mean, everybody's got something to say. Everybody is in my opinion, everybody is an artist because everybody has something to say. Just find what it is you want to say and how you want to say it. So.
They have a voice. You're saying find the
your
best
voice.
way. Yeah. Find your voice and the best way to share that with others.
Exactly. Everybody has something to say. You don't have to be creative, but you can still say something somehow. So.
Yeah.
Thank you, Marisa.
And
That's great.
maybe their thing, this particular person, maybe it's ministering to other people that feel the same way they do.
Maybe it is. Don't forget there's things like hospitality is a gift. Exhorting people, praying for people is a gift.
Yeah.
There's a lot more you need to explore about yourself and what all gifts there really are. And you may find you've been sitting on a gift all
like
this time and you just didn't see it that way, So
Agreed. Okay, I'll answer next on this. I agree with what both of you said. If I was talking to this person and they say, I'm not creative, I can't find my niche, I've tried everything and nothing seems to fit, I would try to get them to expand their idea of what creativity is. As all of us have said, there are more ways to consider yourself creative. Historically, with art and acting and music, there have always been people that can't paint a line on a canvas, but what they do have is they have the ability to be supportive of other people that are artists, to sponsor them in some ways. That may be a way that you can help and feel creative in that endeavor. Or if you're a rich person and you have the money to buy a gallery so that other artists can put their things in. It's just an example. But I agree with what Jen and Marisa both were saying. And what I said earlier as well is that there are many ways to be creative, in your work, in relationships. I like that Jen said, you're a good husband or a good wife. I think there is a creativity to that. In what ways can I be a better husband? In what ways can I be a better wife, friend, son? Any of that can be creative. To be supportive of someone else and figure out how to do that. To be a parent, how to be a good parent and be creative in that way. I think that there's something for everyone. I don't think, as Marisa said at the top of the broadcast, that God put this creativity and talent in each of us. The idea is to find what it is, what your gifts and talents and abilities are. And I hear the frustration in that person. They tried everything. The person said, I've tried everything and can't find it. Nothing seems to fit. And I hear that. That's got to be super frustrating. And there's no way I can completely understand how frustrating that is for you. But what I can say is that sometimes it takes people a long time to find, what they're good at. It takes some time. But once you find it, you might find that you're better at doing this thing than anybody else is. So it's a matter of being patient and not trying to force it. I like what Glenn said later about the flow, going with the flow, like a branch on the shoulders of a mighty stream. Anybody knows what movie that's from, I'll be really impressed. But it does take some time. And the idea is not to allow the frustration to stop you from trying to find what works. Like I said about art, it's okay that I'm not a great artist. I enjoy it. I enjoy doing it in the way that I do it, because I'm writing letters to my wife and she seems to enjoy them. And I do little doodles and artwork on the envelope, and I have fun doing that. And I feel creative in that. So none of those envelopes are ever going to end up in a gallery. Not a single one of them is ever going to end up in a gallery, but they end up in Jen's heart. And so to me, that's a way for me to be creative in a way that's impactful, at least in my circle. So there we go. Glenn, what about you? Person says, I'm not creative. I can't find my niche. I've tried everything and nothing seems to fit. What would you tell that person?
Well, first of all, I'd say it's very difficult to find something to say to someone who's down in the creativity dump. So,
right,
taking my usual approach of being upfront, I would say if it's a guy, or I'd say, buddy, you got to cut yourself some slack.
Right.
Relax.
Right.
Just take the pressure off. Like I said in the other part of the write up. And just live your life and don't push it. Just calm it all down and just first of all, enjoy your life.
Yeah.
You've got to want to appreciate what you've got already then.
Yeah.
I think be open to what presents itself. Just don't shut your head off. If you do, you'll go nowhere. But if you don't cut yourself the break, you're going to be frustrated forever. You'll never get anything.
Right.
Because you put the pressure on yourself. It's overbearing. It's overwhelming. Who can function in a creative sense when they've got this huge pressure on? You can't.
Wow. Yeah.
So thanks.
Thank you. Jen says, I'm taking this advice.
Mm-hmm.
Jen, do you care to share what you mean by that?
Oh, you guys. I just am still in a place of staring at my drafting table and all my stuff. And it's gotten to the point where when I look in that direction, it's just this guilt and shame for not being over there creating something. And it's pressure, just like Glenn said, it's pressure that I'm putting on myself to do something because I feel like I'm wasting time or wasting the gifts God's given me. And I can't create out of that place.
Right.
But it's frustrating because I spent 15 years with someone that didn't encourage me, nothing, you know what I mean? And so, almost like in a covert way, really discouraged me from doing art and doing anything artistic. So I came out of that, I was more creative once I got out of that abusive situation, but I feel I'm sort of back in the same spot, but on a different facet of it. I keep using the word facet, but it's just a great word.
Yeah.
So it's weird and frustrating, but at the same time, like I just need to let it go. I just need to let it organically happen because this other direction I'm going is not working. And it's just frustrating. So.
Okay. Well, thank you, Jen. Thank you for sharing that. Marisa, add to that last question. How could someone be attracted to me when I can't even find my talents, if I have any?
That is a good question. And we're most attractive when we're being the best of ourselves.
Sure.
And occupied, like Glenn says, in the moment, living our life. That's when we're most attractive. When we're not trying to be attractive. When we just are.
Oh, I like it.
Yeah. Glenn says, if you're living an authentic life, nothing will be wasted. You just put that in the chat. So for me on this question, how can someone be attracted to me when I can't even find my talents, if I have any? I think there are plenty of people, and I don't know who this listener is, but plenty of people are attracted to you not for your talents. People are attracted to you for who you are as a person, but obviously this bothers you, and I understand why it would. But the attraction comes from different areas. Obviously, if this is something that's important to you, I wouldn't be as worried about who's going to be attracted to me. I would be worried about finding where the block is. I mean, for me, what it all comes down to when someone feels blocked is to find what it is. I mean, in waterways and things like that, if the water is not flowing like it should, they go and try to find out what's stopping it. Is there a beaver dam that has been built that's diverting the water somewhere? And they'll even do that intentionally, build a dam to control and get energy from the water and things like that. But in the case of creativity, you find out where the block is, you remove the block, and then you have this flow of creativity that comes out. But in my opinion, attraction isn't just based on whatever talents you have. Now, for me, in talking about Jen, she is very talented, and I'm not attracted to just her talents and abilities. I'm attracted to her as a person, who she is as a person. And as we have said, your talents and abilities, your creativity may be coming in different ways, and the right person is going to notice that. They're going to be able to pick up on that, even if you don't see it. I've said to Jen several times, in looking at what she has already created, that she has great talent. But me telling her that every day, several times a day, isn't gonna get anything written on the paper. She has to work that out for herself. I can help, but at the end of the day, you have to figure that out for yourself. So if you feel like no one's going to be attracted to you because you can't find your talents, I don't necessarily think that that's true. People will be attracted to you for who you are, even if you're talentless. And I don't believe that's the case. Like I said earlier, I think all of us have talents and abilities that other people don't possess. We're like snowflakes. Snowflakes are unique, and there's no two that are the same. I don't know how they can test every snowflake that's ever been made, but they've tested enough to know that there's not two that are exactly the same.
Yeah.
So I think that's fascinating, and I think people are like that. Did you want to say something, Jen?
Yeah, I was just thinking while you were talking, thinking about maybe it would be beneficial for anyone struggling with this to find out what their motivation is behind the push to be creative.
Right.
Find out what's the reason behind that, because maybe the reason is off kilter. Like you were saying, maybe somebody thinks if I'm creative, I'll have more friends, or
Right.
more people will like me.
Right.
Something to that effect. And I don't think, I'm sure there maybe are creative people out in the world that do it for that reason, but I think they'd be holding themselves back a little bit, because it's not like an internal motivator, it's external. And I think anything creative should be birthed out of, who you want to be and your passion and your heart,
Yeah, I agree. So since you answered that way, you can answer next if you're ready. How can someone be attracted to me when I can't find my talents, if I have any? What would you say to that person?
I think being creative is something you do. Maybe somebody could think of it as something that they are, or it could be both. But like you said earlier, people being attracted to you shouldn't necessarily be based on if you're creative or not.
Right.
It should be based on the person that you are at your core, your heart.
Right.
So that would be my answer.
Agreed. Thank you, Jen. What about you, Glenn? How can someone be attracted to me when I can't even find my talents, if I have any? What would you say?
Rubbish.
Yeah.
Don't see it at all. Some people might, like you get movie stars that are attracted to other movie stars, but I don't know whether that's really attraction. It's just because they probably mix in a social set and don't go out with the plebs. I've got no idea. A lot of it is with whom you mix.
Yeah.
So,
agreed.
But I wouldn't care less if someone had no perceptible talents.
Right.
Per se. But when you look beneath the surface, like I would say, what would be? Just please, just read the second question. I'll go there and maybe incorporate.
Sure. Second question on this list is: do you consider yourself creative? If so, in what context? Is that what you mean?
No, the next bit. The bit where you said, hang on, I'll just have to see if I can find it. There was a second part to that question.
Oh, the first part was, what do you say to the person who says to themselves, I am not creative, I can't find my niche, I've tried everything,
Okay,
nothing
well,
seems to fit.
I answered that one. I said, well, take the pressure off first. Okay, if I can't even find my talents, okay, I said, well, that's rubbish. That can be attracted to you. But we're all attracted to different things. Like I'm attracted to people who are creative in their mind, with their minds.
Oh yeah,
that's a huge attractiveness.
Yeah.
Like someone who can, even people that can understand concepts. Like to my mind, that's just so relevant.
Right.
Whether they can paint a picture, I don't care.
Right.
But if they can't hold a conversation or they can't process anything, well, what's the point?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just how you see it.
There are so many other aspects to who a person is, and as I said, I don't believe that attraction is just based on what your talents are. It's based on who you are as a person. People are attracted to you as a person, rather than what it is that you do. In fact, a lot of society, as we've talked about before, people ask you what you do, and I don't think it's about what you do. I think society tries to make it that. Well, I'm a capitalist. I'm a venture capitalist. So is that who you are then? If that's what you are, you're a manager at the Taco Bell. Does that define who you are as a person? I don't think so. I think what you do is what you do. Who you are is what people are attracted to.
And it could be a piece of who you are. It's not the whole.
Yeah, exactly. Okay, next part is from the comments between Glenn and the listener. The listener states, because what you just stated is exactly what I did. Life will lead you into a hole on earth. I learned that the hard way. The more you're exposed in youth to the reality of this world, as taught by parents and peers, plus the observation of others, leads you to the hole. You can make decisions based on what you know exists. Maybe I just got the short end of the stick. But then again, maybe I passed up opportunities presented and I was blinded by my own foolishness. But the question now is where and what now? The question now is where and what now? Anyone want to take a stab at that? I'll go.
Yeah,
I'll go. Oh, go ahead.
No, you go, please.
Where and what now? Based on everything that I've read and based on the questions presented, if I'm talking to this person, I would go back to what I said before. I would find out what the block, if any, if there's something blocking you, I would try to remove that. If there's something in the way, I would always, and I look at things from a psychological standpoint more than anything. I mean, a person's emotions enter into it too, but we all make decisions from the way that we see and perceive ourselves and the world. People could argue that point, but for me, based on what I've lived, when I change the way I think, it changes the actions. And you can do it the other way too. You can decide to change actions first, but it's going to come back to how you perceive it. You can do something all day long to try to change it, but if you don't change your perception, it's not really going to be changed. I've said before, if I was going to be a therapist, I would be cognitive and behavioral, which means that you work on the way that you think and then you change the behavior, not the other way around. So find the block, remove the block, do whatever you can do to find that. And again, continuing based on all the questions that have been asked thus far, I would say, remove the pressure, like what Glenn said. If there's pressure on you to find this, I would say it's not the most important thing. You have other talents and abilities and value and in who you are as a person. Focus on those. Like we tell Celine, Celine at 20 years old, or I think she may be older than that now, but however old Celine is, she seems to be getting pressure on being in a relationship, but instead focusing on who she is and focusing on working on herself, in my opinion, would be the best move. And that might be the best thing for you. So if the question is where and what now, I think you're in a good place. I mean, you while you still breathe, you have like the quote said at the beginning, you have an opportunity to change how you perceive yourself, and removing the block and thinking about the pressure that you're feeling. I would ask you where you're feeling the pressure. Are you putting the pressure on yourself, or are you feeling it from who said that you had to be creative? I mean, I don't know where that's coming from. I know there are all kinds of pressures that we have from the world. What kind of job you do, get a job, pay your bills, pay your taxes. There's all kinds of pressures. I just haven't heard pressure to be creative from the world. But, people grow up in certain families where their parents pressure them to play sports. And there may be pressure to be creative. There may be pressure to go to art school. I mean, I don't know. A lot of times they'll say, well, that's a hard thing to get into, instead of trying to pressure your kid into doing art. But whatever it is, if you have any interests, I would find that. I would continue in that vein and just work on yourself. And in that process, you may find exactly what you're looking for. Okay, so I went first, and I think Glenn was going to go. So go ahead, Glenn, if you're ready.
Lorenzo?
I'm here. I just couldn't get my mouse over to the microphone. Well, if you're in a hole, it sort of says it's the question is where and what now. And Cripps said, I mean, basically, what I'm reading is that this person is saying, I am not good enough. And I have to say to them, until you feel you are good enough, you're going nowhere. It's not going to matter whatever you try. If you don't feel good enough within yourself, it's a dead end.
Yeah.
So I think the work, whatever shape or form, whether the person needs to get assistance or discussion or whatever form of communication or whatever they need to do to get their head in a different place, I think that's where their time should be invested.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very good.
Thank you.
Thank you, Glenn. Marisa or Jen, whichever one wants to try this one. Where and what now?
I was going to say that it seems in this paragraph, read it, the two things that stick out to me is gauging how they are personally based on external things. One of them being the world and what's going on around them, but the other is their past, which I've struggled with both. So I completely understand where this person's coming from. I think sometimes we can get stuck in our past and get stuck on, the time wasted or what we didn't do or what we should have done. Right. And that's such a downer. It beats us up. And the same thing with comparing ourselves to the world and seeing all these people seemingly, progressing or being successful. And then we compare ourselves, and it reminds me of the deflated ego place that I found myself in. And so, what you guys are saying is correct. I think it's maybe even changing it to kind of like an attitude of gratefulness of the life that they have and the type of person that they are, and just being grateful for the things that are positives in their life, and getting your perspective on that instead of the lack can be a huge game changer.
Wow. Great.
So that would be my perspective.
Really good. Yeah. I'm not surprised, but that was really, really insightful. Thank you. Marisa, you're last on the list here on this one.
What now?
Yeah, what now?
Well, let me tell you what now. When I was in my depressive funk because of being in a abusive relationship with a narcissist, my art supplies had been put into storage and were covered with dust and mold and you name it. And they've been that way for years.
Yeah.
And when you have a child, especially a special needs child, and you're living with an abusive narcissist, you really don't have a whole lot of time to sit down, nor the desire or the peace of mind or anything you need to focus on something like creative arts, fine art, painting, drawing, etc. You need to have a certain peace to even bring that forward.
Right.
I had been led to a live stream. I was just starting YouTube, and I hadn't really had I hadn't uploaded any content or anything, but I had my channel. I was going around going to live streams and stuff, getting to know people. Somebody led me to a stream where an artist was going live every night. Sometimes they'd sing and they'd be painting. And when I saw that, I knew that's what I want to do. And I ended up going live every night with just maybe 2 or 3 exceptions for 2 years.
Wow.
And I started when I was in the Salvation Army shelter with my daughter, oddly enough, but that's another
Interesting.
story.
Wow.
that person, even though they turned out to be an abusive narcissist and wasn't really my friend, and they really didn't love me or care about me, I mistook love bombing for love.
Sure.
But that person, God can use anybody and anything
Yes.
to work his goodwill. He used
Yeah.
this person to tell me, just take a moment of your day. It can be a minute, 2 minutes, 5 minutes. Put the effort. And this is opposite the way you roll, Jason. It is behavioral, which turned into cognitive.
Sure. It can happen.
If you build it, it will come.
Right.
School of
Oh,
psychology.
yeah.
He told me, just make just a moment or two, draw something, paint something, sculpt something, fill that little, give yourself just a little scooch of time to do something artistic and creative, then stop, put away, go do whatever else, you need to do.
Yeah.
But he said, it's got to start from somewhere. Just do that, and then increase that time each day, whether it's 30 more seconds, another minute, and that time grows. And that rekindled the fire within me. I mean, it may not work for everybody, but it's an option. It's a way to go.
Yes.
I wouldn't be telling people if it didn't work for me. And often when I've faced creative blocks, you just got to do it. Yeah. Whatever it is, there's nothing quite as daunting as facing a blank canvas or a blank piece of paper.
Yeah.
And
wow.
There's really, for me, in my opinion, my best way to go is to just jump in and do it. Just do it. Don't even, like Glenn says, don't even think about it. Just be in the moment. Just do it. It will take care of itself. If God gave you gifts to do something, just start to do it. Whatever it is, singing, cooking, whatever it is. Just give it a little time, not nothing. Yeah. Nothing will give you nothing. Give it a little time and then let it grow organically.
Beautiful.
There you go.
Thank you, Marisa. And I'll just say real briefly, I did say that I'm a cognitive behavioralist, but I think there's value in what Marisa said. I think we get to the point where we've thought everything there is to think about it, and it gets into a place where thinking about it anymore isn't going to make any change, and it does have to come to the behavioral. So I'm not in opposition to the way that you did that. And for some people, it's going to work different for everyone. Some people are the way Marisa did it is going to help you more than thinking about it. But I certainly have been in places in my life where I tried the behavior. I tried to change my behavior and it didn't work. But there have been other times when the behavior did help me more than the cognitive thinking about it did. And so you have to decide as a person where you are. If all you do is think about it, what Marisa is saying could be the best thing for you is to just do something. That may be where you're at. I don't know. But really, really great answers to that question. Thank you, guys. All right. So the next one, here's a question for you. Which comes first? Learning to live in the world and using your generous heart to try to make things better for others, or focusing on what you achieve or don't achieve? And I'll read it again. Here's a question for you. Which comes first? Learning to live in the world and using your generous heart to try to make things better for others, or...
Hey, Crips, I think you missed the two paragraphs before you got there. I think you missed to start. What do you mean go with the flow? What was the flow? Go up 2 paras.
Well, it's not highlighted. So I generally, when I ask the question, maybe it just didn't get highlighted. There are 2 paragraphs before.
Yeah, I just thought it was the question was relevant to the 2 paragraphs. I just thought it might be worthwhile reading.
Yeah, no problem. No problem. Thank you for pointing it out. Okay, so after the one that we asked, but the question now is where and what now? The listener says, what do you mean go with the flow? What was the flow? Is that what you're referring to?
Yes.
What do you mean go with? Do you want me to just read the whole paragraph?
I think it's worthwhile to read what that person said because I think it's quite telling.
Okay. Gotcha. Okay. So the listener says, what do you mean go with the flow? What was the flow? I mean, I went with the flow for years and everyone else went to college. When I went with the flow of life from job to job, finally I said, forget this. Did too much for others. Didn't care about my own well-being. Absolute foolishness for me. Now I'm just here, lost in translation. That's why I started to compare myself with others. I saw that they had a desire since they were a kid, or they have a talent, and either they use it or they have done something else. Some are miserable, some are content, but I thought, WTF. If I knew I had talent like acting, writing, sports, preaching, teaching, leading, engineering, singing, to me, life is easy to figure out. I would work hard at perfecting that talent. Me, I feel like a shop rat, now physically broken to even do that. The ray of hope, if there is one, is if I can love people and have empathy to not want others to hurt themselves or others. I'm sure there are others that may think the same way about me. And then Glenn responds, well, for a start, going with the flow means first give up any anger or discontent that one has for the world. The flow means take away focus from outcome and allow oneself to experience the moment. You might say, does that mean I should not have goals I want to achieve? Nope, it does not mean that. It means don't get so focused on the goals that you don't even rejoice that you have the legs to walk to that goal, as an example. I hear you saying you're not achieving, but first it needs to be rammed down that achievement does not require the prerequisite of putting a load of pressure on oneself. And then as a result of those two paragraphs, the question then is, here's a question for you. Which comes first? Learning to live in the world and using your generous heart to try to make things better for others, or focusing on what you achieve or don't achieve?
Mm-hmm. I think it's the first.
Okay, so you're saying, Jen, the first one, learning to live in the world and using your generous heart to try to make things better for others.
Yeah, I do.
Rather than
yeah.
Oh, go ahead.
No, rather than what?
Rather than focusing on what a person achieves or doesn't achieve.
Yeah, I think the first one. I know it's hard not to compare, and it's hard not to look at yourself and other people and think of all the things that you're not doing, you know?
Yeah.
But I do think that creativity can be born out of being selfless and pouring into other people and doing your job to the best of your ability, you know, in the sense of a place of love and gratitude. And I think the other things will come and it'll surprise you.
Wow. Agreed.
Yeah.
Thank you, Jen.
You know what it kind of reminds me of? It reminds me of like that old, I wouldn't say it's a wives' tale because it actually is the way it happened for you and I, but, and just using relationships as an example, but you know, when you're like looking for a spouse or a mate, or, you know, you're just looking, and that's all you're focused on. And there's nobody there. You know, it's like, where are they? And they say, you know, you'll usually meet them when you least expect it, or when you stop looking, or when you're not looking. And there's some truth to that. Yeah. I know Glenn's mentioned a lot of times about how friends come into your life when you least expect it and when you most need it. Yeah. And I don't know if I'm getting that correct, Glenn, but you can correct me if you need to. But I think there's something to that. And it makes me curious as to the mechanics of that. Like, what is that? I don't fully know, but it's interesting.
It is interesting. And so whether you believe in God or the universe, the idea is that the idea I've heard from Glenn a lot is don't look for it and it'll appear. From his perspective, and Glenn, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but his perspective is that when you stop searching and trying to find this thing, the universe will provide. Now, that sometimes may seem it's in direct opposition to what the Bible would say. Now, as far as salvation is concerned, it clearly says, seek and you will find, knock and the door will be open, ask and you shall receive. Those things are important with salvation. And, no one stumbles across the field. There is a seeking involved in that. But in other areas of life, like Jen mentioned, I had stopped looking for a spouse. I was so beat up from my divorce, and I just wasn't thinking about it. And then when Glenn and I started talking after my mom died, we got to a point where he started asking me questions about whether I was going to get back on the horse, so to speak, and whether I was going to try to find love again. And at first I had no interest in that. I was still, kind of licking my wounds and stuff, even after 7-8 years. It was very stressful for me. But I did get to the point where I started looking, and just as Jen said, when I went to look, there was nobody there that I saw myself having a relationship with. And Jen was a friend at the time, but she wasn't available to me. And seeing her and seeing this wonderful person that I only wished I could have a relationship with, that gave me the idea that, well, if there's a person like Jen out there, there has to be another one. But there isn't. There isn't another one like Jen. Jen's the only one. And it just, praise God, it worked out for me that we were able to be in a relationship. But just as Jen said, when I looked, I wasn't able to find anything. So I went back into my original position, which was I'm not going to look for it. And that's when it happened for me. So that may be true for you, dear listener, when you stop trying to make it happen. But, to the question, what comes first? I agree with Jen that the learning to live in the world and using your generous heart to try to make things better for others, who knows what that'll bring for you. I mean, yes, you get to the point where, you're doing more for others and not taking care of yourself, like you said in the quote. Focusing too much on the wrong thing can be detrimental. But I don't think, if you're giving to other people, but you're also making sure that your needs are being met, and you're not focused on, what you don't have, you're not focused on what you achieve or don't achieve. I think there's a lot of value in that. And I think you'll find that, don't know, listener, if you believe in God or the universe or believe in anything, but I think that we would all agree that, God/universe will provide what you need when you're ready to accept it. You have to be ready to accept it. I think that's true in any case. And you've done a lot of things based on the paragraphs that I've read. You've done a lot of things to make this thing happen. And it may be just, removing the pressure off yourself and not to focus as much on what you've done and what you haven't done. But I think it's valuable to focus on, as Glenn says, I believe it's Glenn in this, that your generous heart and trying to make things better for others, focusing in on that rather than what you achieve and don't achieve. What do you think, Marisa?
Mankind is our business. We are to be serving and ministering one to another. Seek ye first the kingdom of God and his righteousness, and all these things will be added unto you. That
Right.
includes everything, all things. What you're supposed to do with yourself, what you're supposed to do for a job, what you're supposed to do with your spare time, who, the right people to hang out with, potentially a spouse. God knows what you want and God knows what you need. And sometimes we just need to face facts. We don't always want things that we need. And
Right.
sometimes we need things that we don't really want off the top,
Right.
So there needs to be a level of accountability and maturity. Be real with yourself. It's okay to have goals and expectations, but put others first. Put God first.
Right.
An attitude of servitude and gratitude is not going to steer you wrong.
Right. Thank you. All right, Glenn, you're up on this one. What comes first, generous heart to try to make things better for others, or focusing on what you achieve or don't achieve?
I'm with Jen. Like, I mean, this person's obviously in a hole. So what that tells you straight up is that what's been happening is not working.
Right.
It's just all it's done is make the hole bigger.
Right.
So, and I have experienced this because that's why I wrote this question, because I can relate directly to it. It's amazing when you start to take the focus from yourself and just see what can you contribute rather than
Right.
what you can get. These people come to you, but not only do they do that, they can unlock things in you that you did not even know existed.
Agreed.
And I think that is just an amazing part of life that you make yourself available. It will come, and I'd say, well, if that was me, that was what I'd be doing first. I'd take, like we said, take the pressure off, refocus, and be more open and accepting of what comes back, because it will come back. Absolutely. Yeah. So,
agreed.
Yeah, that's how I see it.
Okay. Well, thank you. Everyone answered that one, I believe. So we're almost to the end, guys. The philosophical question in all of this is, does life create you, or do you create your life? Does life create you, or do you create your life? And I'll go first on this one. We don't have any choice about being born. That decision's made by other people. It's not in our pay grade, so to speak. We don't decide to enter the world. There are people that would argue with that and say that believe in reincarnation, that say that we decide even what parents we have. I'm not espousing that we have that choice. Believing in God is that He breathes life into us. If you believe in evolution, then again, we're back to you don't have any choice. You're just an accident born into the world by a random explosion of molecules and two people deciding to have sex, and you're the result of that. It's a purely biological accidental. Either way, you don't have a choice. That's my point. So initially, you're a life created or made. So your choice isn't in that. But once you start growing up and you learn the way of the world, and you're hopefully parented well, you go to school, you have friends, you have family, you start to learn how the world works, etc. Eventually, in my opinion, you get to the point where you get to make some pretty big decisions. Depending on how you're raised, there's a period of time where you can indeed blame other people for your condition, for where you're at. But I always say that when you're an adult, regardless of what the reasons are that you're in a certain place, it comes down to you. It comes down to you deciding what it is you want, what kind of job you want. Do you want to be married, not be married? Do you want to have children, not have children? What is it that you want for your life? So I believe that you create your life. Aside from just being born, you decide what kind of life you want to have. And people will argue this. Glenn's right. It is a philosophical question. There are philosophers with bigger brains than my own who have argued these concepts, these ideas, about life and what does it all mean? What are we here for? And a lot of people agree and argue and disagree, and on and on and on it goes. But for me, you decide what choices you make in this life. You didn't decide where you were born, geography. You didn't decide who your parents were. But when you get old enough, when you become an adult, you can decide to move somewhere. If you don't like where you're living, you can move somewhere else. If you don't like your friends, you can choose better friends. You have a lot of decisions you can make. Your life is in your hands, so to speak. Now, I'm not saying just before we move to someone else, I'm not saying there's this idea of pulling yourself up by your own bootstraps. You're the captain of your own ship. You decide. There are things we can't decide. There are things that happen in life, like people that are born with cerebral palsy, or, they didn't decide that. people that are born blind. They didn't decide to be born blind, but they have a decision. How are they going to deal with that fact of being blind? I mean, are they going to sit in a corner and not do anything, or are they going to, pick up a cane and learn how to walk? Everyone has a decision how you use what's been given to you, the cards you've been dealt, so to speak, how you're going to deal with that. That's my opinion on that. Marisa, does life create you, or do you create your life? What do you think?
Well, I think it's a little bit of both. I think God creates you and designs you to be something specific with specific qualities, attributes, gift, talents, whatever you want to call that.
Mm-hmm.
And it's up to you to make those choices, and you do get to decide a lot, even though, like you said, we don't choose to be here. We didn't choose to arrive here, but it's our choice. Only we are responsible for what we say and do, or what we don't do. If we just concern ourselves with doing the best we can with what we've been dealt with, then life takes care of itself, doesn't it?
Right. Agreed. Thank you, Marisa. Jen, what about you? Does life create you, or do you create your life?
Yeah, I agree with Marisa. I think it's a little of both. I think the things that happen in life can shape and mold you, and you have a choice on how it shapes and molds you, in respect of how you respond. Like you hear these stories of people going through really hard things and coming out the other end with just so much more knowledge and understanding of God, of life, of people, of themselves. It's a treasure. But some people could look at that and see it as a lump of coal and toss it out, and I think that part of it, that wherein lies the choice, that's the part of you creating your life. So life happens. There's a lot of things that happen that are out of your control, or maybe they were in your control, but you didn't realize you had any control. I mean, that was my situation to an extent.
Sure.
But then after it's happened and it's done with, it's already happened. You can't change it. You have a decision on how you're going to react to it. And how, like for me, how I allow God to shape and mold me through those things, good or bad,
Right.
So that'd be my answer.
Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Glenn, does life create you, or do you create your life? What do you think?
I think it can be circumstantial. So first I'll say, look, if someone's sending rockets and bombs and you're crowded in a bomb shelter, life's creating what you have to do.
Yeah.
But putting that to one side and going to experience, I'd say when I was miserable, felt like a piece of crap, had a life that was just offered nothing, life was creating me. There's no risk about it. There's no creative force when you live in misery. It's
right.
Everyone in different circumstances can be in a place where they just do what they got to do to survive the day. Forget about the rest. Yeah. But I think when you break out of that, if you can, and you get the opportunity to go and experience lots of different things, I think then you create your life.
Yeah.
You have a say then in what your life is. So I think a bit of both. It can be and pretty much circumstantial. I like the second one better.
Yeah. Gotcha. Okay, taking all that has been said, I must wonder if one person is more creative than another. It's just how we perceive the meaning of the word. I'm sorry, if no one person is more creative than another, it's just how we perceive the meaning of the word. There's always another angle to consider. Try this one for size. Quote, gratitude is the best medicine. It heals your mind, your body, and your spirit, and attracts more things to be grateful for. Unknown. A final question. Is it the allure of one's creativity that is the attraction, or is it the gratitude and humility that we express for having our unique personal creativity, which is the true attraction? So is it the allure of one's creativity that is the attraction, or the gratitude and humility that we express for having our unique personal creativity, which is the true attraction? What do you think, Jen?
I will say that there were times in my past that I was attracted to really creative people.
Sure.
And I think when creative people get together, I've mentioned on the show that there was times that I would get stuck into comparing, and even not that I would actively compete, but in my mind, I kind of would
Sure.
because of my ego. But there were times where I found out that the person underneath the talents wasn't a very nice person. And then over time, it sort of morphed to where I'm more attractive to the core of a person and who they are
Right.
than their whatever creativity thing that they might have.
Sure.
So I definitely now, where I'm at now in life, it's the last part.
The unique personal creativity, which is the true attraction.
Yeah. And gratitude and humility too.
Yep.
That's very attractive.
Okay. Thank you, Jen.
Yeah.
Marisa, you're up next with your kitty.
Yeah, me and Mario.
That's cute.
Virtue. It's everything. Virtue itself is attractive. That good energy, those positive vibrations.
Yeah.
Those wonderful things attract more wonderful things. I believe that.
Right.
So it's not any one particular virtue. It's just virtue is attractive.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Glenn, I'll go last on this one. Glenn, is it the allure of one's creativity that is the attraction, or the gratitude and humility that we express for having our unique personal creativity, which is the true attraction?
Yeah, I asked Sandra this question before I put it in. She said she didn't give a rat's backside about creativity. I'm paraphrasing that into the polite version.
Sure. Thank you.
But she said humility is a huge attractiveness. Is hugely attractive. Someone who hasn't got a big ego, a big head,
Right.
wants to big note themselves, as she said. And I mirror that.
Yeah.
Humility is to my mind, a huge attractor. It's just like someone who is so confident in themselves that they don't need to be boisterous and keep trying to build up. There's nothing worse than someone who wants to sit down on a date and tell you how good they are and what they've achieved and how wonderful they are and how much. Look, what boring.
Right.
So yeah.
Okay.
There you got my answer.
Thank you, Glenn. Yeah, I'm going to agree with all three of you. It's the gratitude and humility, and I like the way this is phrased: unique personal creativity, and I think that's the attractive thing. And it may not be you being an artist or a musician or an actor or a writer, anything like that. It just might be who you are. And I think these have been great questions. It's a wonderful write-up, and out of this whole thing, that's what I hear. That's what I get out of it, is that we all have creativity, whether we're aware of it or not. We have it. It's a matter of finding your voice, finding what you enjoy doing, and do those things. And as Marisa said, it may be the point where just try something. Now, you did say, I'm speaking to the listener that Glenn spoke with, you did say that you tried everything. And I liked Maurice's answer about that. I mean, you couldn't have possibly tried everything. And it's not a derogatory thing. It's not a criticism. It's just that there may be other areas that you haven't looked at. You may need to expand your idea of what creativity actually is. And if you did that, you might recognize that there are things in you that are inherently creative. In the words, just a little patchwork of words that Glenn put in there. It looks to me like you're a writer. The way you're putting words together is creative and artistic. So there may be something in writing for you. I don't know. No one else can decide for you what it is you enjoy doing and what you're creative. It just, people notice things, and that's what I notice. It seems like there's some creativity in the way that you've worded some of this stuff. So maybe like I said, maybe there's something in that for you. But finding, having gratitude and humility, and the way that you express that in the world, that can't be a bad thing. There may be redemption in that, and who knows? You might find the very creativity that has been so elusive for you. You might find that and continue to do that, and just developing as a person. All right. Well, we've reached the end of the write-up and the end of the questions, and we're just past the hour. And so that's good. Yeah, I like it when it ends up like that. All right. So we'll each say goodbye on this Mother's Day, and we'll start with Marisa. Marisa, if you want to if you have any closing comments that you want to make, please feel free, or just say goodbye to the people.
I was going to say Marisa should go last because she's always like the best.
You want me to
We can always
go
have her
last?
close out the show. No, you go.
Okay.
I love it.
Well, thanks everybody who came. I hope everybody had a good Mother's Day, and thank you for sharing some of that here with us right here.
Yeah.
I had a wonderful day, and I hope you guys did too. Just to sum it up, virtue and confidence in yourself, not arrogance, not inflated ego, but just being confident, comfortable in your own skin, knowing, who you are, essentially, what is it that's good about you, that you enjoy, that other people enjoy. Know yourself,
Yes.
and enjoy things about you. There are good things about you, and if you're being and doing those good things, don't worry about who's going to find you attractive. They will be. They'll naturally be drawn to you.
Right. Great.
So thanks everybody. This is another great show. Looking forward to next week already. I don't know who or what, but we're going to have a good time. I know we will. Please share the stream out since I can't, or we'll be elbow deep in my trolls, and we don't need that. Now, do we?
Oh, come on.
Oh, they're not.
I want some trolls. I want some trolls.
I mean, the worst thing you can do. I mean, they come in, you block them. I mean, it's not that big of a deal. So anyway, maybe because I really do want to share this out with my subscribers. I got over 2,000 people who need to know about True Story Live. So maybe we'll start sharing you guys out. Thank you, and thanks for letting me be part of your little show here. I love it here. I look forward to this every Sunday. Thank you so much.
Good. Well, thank you. I'm glad that you do look forward.
So please share it out, and be sure to tune in next week for more fun here on True Story Live.
Sweet.
There you go.
There it is.
Thank you. Thank you, Marisa. Jen, would you like to go next and say any closing words, or say goodbye to everyone, whichever?
Yeah, I'll just say that this unexpectedly, well, maybe not totally unexpectedly, but more so than I thought, has really blessed me. It's kind of made me address some of my own stuff, and just everybody sharing, it's sort of given me a better handle on what I'm going through with my own creativity.
Oh, wonderful.
So that's a huge unexpected blessing. So thanks, guys. And thank you, Glenn, for the write-up. And the other thing I was going to say, as Marisa was talking, I was thinking, I wonder if this could be connected, if someone's struggling with this, and this is just me basing it off of my own journey, but if it comes from a place of, like Marisa said, not knowing yourself. So if you don't have an identity, or it's sort of not all there and constructed, and there's no foundation, or maybe there's a foundation, there's no structure on top of that foundation, maybe it makes it easier for people to look outside to find out who they are, instead of looking within, and for believers looking to God. So it just made me wonder about that, and I wanted to mention it.
I love it.
So
that's great.
And I'll see everybody next week. This is a great show. And as always, I'm like Marisa, I always look forward to our show on Sunday and just fellowship, hanging out. It's great stuff.
Okay.
Have a great week, everybody.
Right. Thank you. Glenn, if you'd like to, any closing comments, or just say goodbye to the peoples for us.
Yeah, I'll say good night, and I'll say to the person that this has been written for, thanks for all the input, because this is not derived from one email. There's probably been Probably 50 emails back and forth
Wow.
Oh,
to try to pull this out.
All right.
So it's not like it's okay. It's the willingness of the person to open out, which makes this possible. That's what I want to say. It's and that option's available through any of us and for any person out there who wants to have something to try to tailor to specifically something that they want to have a listen to. It'd be our pleasure to do so, but don't think you can spend 5 minutes of your time and it's all going to fall into place. No, it can't happen that way because it's just not enough information. So yeah, 50 emails, I'd say, maybe more. So it's time consuming. So yeah. That's when I knew that the person is serious by the amount of willingness and effort they were prepared to put into the communication. So that's quite lifting. So say good night with that one. Thanks.
Okay. Well, I thank you for that, Glenn. I would say that there's creativity in all the sharing. I mean, to be willing to put that stuff out there and be willing to let us use it for a broadcast. I mean, there's creativity in that. So I was saying I was seeing creativity in some of the words that were written, but sharing, being willing to share. And I say that because there are a lot of people that are not willing to share anything. They're closed up like a clam, and they're not going to give anything of themselves. This is a gift, and there's creativity in giving a gift, in my opinion. All right. So there we go. All right. Before we go, I'm just going to address something that happened in the chat real quick, and I think it's okay to do this. We have a friend that was part of the broadcast, and a friend of ours in the personal world. This person hasn't been around in a while, but she showed up in the chat and made some really good comments and saying goodbye to the community. And I would be remiss if I didn't comment on it. I believe this is a person that was important in our lives, and hate to see her go, but it has to be said that there definitely has been an impact for all of us, and each person could say something if they wanted, but I would just say thank you for stopping in. Thank you for your kind words. And I also wish you the best moving forward. Wish nothing but good for you, for this person. I think we're all on the same page there. Sometimes people come in our lives for a short time, and for whatever reason, it doesn't work out necessarily. But that's not to say that down the road something might work out differently. And I'm not a person that closes the door and locks it. The door is always open. That's why I have the wonderful icon that Jen made for me. It says open, and that's a decision that I made. We talk about making decisions for our life. And yeah, sometimes there are people for whatever reason that you have to walk away from. Sometimes that happens. But I personally don't slam the door. The door is open for most people that I relate to. It just might mean that this is a season where it just doesn't work for a while. But we all grow and change, hopefully. And maybe there'll be a time down the road when you'll see the open door and decide to walk through it. And does anyone else want to say anything more about that?
Well, I think you covered it beautifully, Chris. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, that's it for us, guys. And we'll talk off air about the write-up for next week. But thank you for everyone that has been here in the chat. Thank you for everyone listening to playback. Thank you for taking time out of your day to listen to our broadcast. We certainly appreciate it. It is a small channel, but the people that come are special to us. And tonight's topic has been the allure of creativity, glory, and valor for the hope in future. Hope in future. I like that. Hope in future. All right. Thanks, guys. Hope everyone has a good week. Happy Mother's Day to everyone. We'll be back same time next week, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time or Eastern Daylight Time, whatever way you want to use it. We are on the East Coast here. But until then, good night and God bless. And thanks for listening.